and gentlemen, welcome to Eat, Sleep, Suplex, Retweet.
Welcome to Ross's Retro Review. I am a stir-crazy Ross McLeod, joined by a man who's practiced social distancing from many people for years. He's someone who's definitely not a people person. He is Strak. Strak, how are you?
I wouldn't say I'm not a people person, just people really irritate me.
Fair enough, that's a fair enough. You're of course listening to Ross's Retro Review here on Suplex Retweet Extra. You're using either iTunes, Android or Spotify to listen to us, but you can also use those platforms to catch us on our main channel, Eat, Sleep, Suplex Retweet. And of course, if you want to find us on social media, that's at Suplex Retweet for the 4 main social media sites. We're also on Tinder, that's at Jack Graham, and Grindr at Ryan Gallagher, that's at Ryan Gallagher on Tinder. And today's show, we're going to be taking a look at Unforgiven. Unforgiven 2000 that took place on September 24th of that year, emanating from the First Union Centre in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The 3rd annual Unforgiven. The big talking points heading into the show: The Rock defending his WWF title in a fatal 4-way, the Kurt Angle Triple H Stephanie McMahon storyline coming to a head, and of course the return of Stone Cold Steve Austin in a full-time capacity after being run over at the 1999 edition of Survivor Series. But before we get to all that, Strak, this is a good show. It's a stack show, but there is quite a bit of filler as well.
I mean, there was, on paper, there was a lot of matches like that. Oh, that could be interesting, that could be good. But as you say, it's kind of, you look at the times of some of the matches, and it's like 6 minutes, 8 minutes, 5 minutes, and you're like, that should, like, we see shows now, even shows on NXT, they go longer than 6 or 7 minutes. Yeah,
like, you're expecting about 8 minutes to be your average TV match on the likes of Main Event nowadays, and yet here we have matches going 6-7 minutes, as you said, and it's a pay-per-view.
But to be fair, is that a bad thing? Because how many times you watch that match and you're like, oh, just hurry up, man. No, it's a bad match, but it doesn't need to be that long.
No, absolutely, I do get you. So our first match is an 8-man tag match, and it doesn't even go a minute per person. It is right to censor, now at full strength. Bill Buchanan, Good Father, Stephen Richards, and Val Venus with his bright white trousers. Val clearly didn't get the dress code memo.
He looked like an ice cream man. JR said that, but no, I kind of wondered because obviously I watched this live years ago, and I remember them going, why is he coming out in all white? Did they tell him last minute, by the way, you're right to the censor? And he went, I've got nowhere to find black dress trousers.
I know, as if that's the hard thing to find. It's probably harder to find white trousers at last minute than it is. Surely there was a Target open, you know what I mean? Or a like Kmart somewhere near the arena.
Like, mate, if you can find a purple army helmet, you can find a pair of black trousers.
They were taking on the team of the APA, Fruit and Bradshaw, and the Dudley Boys. Something me and Stephen talked about when we recorded the SummerSlam retro review was that nowadays, say you have a lower card face like Cedric Alexander against a lower card heel like Bo Dallas, no one really cares. But this era was so good for fleshing out and giving characters to every single person on the card. The right to censor, even though they were the lower card, they were as hated as the likes of Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit in the mid card and main event scene.
I think the reason why they were so hated is because, as I say, I watched this and I lived through the Attitude Era. It was so good to have, because I mean, even at the end of the match, JR says Stephen Richards has gone through a table. If you want it so badly in WWE, you're going to get it. And I burst out laughing and went, no these days. But yeah. I was like, you've so much freedom in wrestling now. You can have different characters, different promos. You can see adult stuff. you're not getting treated like a kid like you used to do in like 1995, 1996. And these guys were coming in and trying to take that all away. So I was like that. If he's going through a table, hopefully it's a broken neck. Obviously I was like 15 at the time. But I'm like, the guys are so hated because you're having, it's kind of like Family Guy with Buzz Killington. You're having a good party and they're coming in and they're just going to piss on the parade.
No, absolutely. We mentioned that they broke the streak of Too Cool. So since we've started doing the retro review, Too Cool were 3-0 in 6-man tag matches. The Right to Censor beat them. The Right to Censor pick up yet another win here with a Stevie kick and then Val Venus picking up the pin. But it's after the match they send they get the fans sort of hyped for the rest of the card. A big melee breaks out. We see a bit of the Bradshaw that people talk about on shoot interviews. They talk about Bradshaw taking liberties. You see him with Steven Richards. Some of the kicks he puts in and some of the punches, you're like, is there any need for that? Is there? You can tell that's a.
I seen that when he snapped and he put him down. He's done this kick to the spine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I would have got backstage and I'd have uppercutted him, regardless if I get sacked or I get in a fight with him or whatever. I'd have walked out and I'd have hit him with a bottle or something. I'd have just. I've had that done with me, and there's just no need for it. There's absolutely no need. You're meant to be a professional wrestler, but yet you're taking the piss because you don't get away with it. It's just nah.
For anyone that feels bad for Steven Richards, maybe type in Blue Meanie versus JBL on SmackDown and see the chair shot that Stevie Richards gets in on JBL. He just about breaks his fucking neck. So you know, he waits 5 years, but he gets his revenge in there eventually.
Doesn't matter. See, revenge. The great thing about revenge is it doesn't matter if it takes 2 months or 20 years. See, as long as you get it, doesn't matter.
Yeah, obviously that came in the fallout of the ECW reboot. But speaking of ECW, we go straight into our next match. ECW original Taz versus Jerry Lawler in a strap match. So this whole rivalry started leading into SummerSlam. They had the match at SummerSlam that Jerry Lawler won. That match was pretty good. This match was just pretty... Another match that I think suffered for the fact that it was only given 5 minutes. It was a bit meh.
I never seen the... Obviously, I missed the era with the whole... Like, every time you listen to Jim Cornette do a podcast, the greatest match ever was Jerry Lawler versus Ric Flair in some bingo hall in Tennessee. And it's the greatest match you'll ever see and you'll never see it again. I didn't see Jerry Lawler as a wrestler. It was the thing when I grew up. I always seen him as just a commentator and a good one at that. So when they put him against Taz, I'm like, Taz, I've watched ECW for a wee bit and I'm like, this guy is world class material. I mean, look what he done to Kurt Angle at the Royal Rumble in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
He just squashed him. And then out in nowhere, Angle flies by him and then he's doing strap matches with Jerry Lawler, a small stunt with a hardcore title, and then all of a sudden he's commentating. You're like, what happened there?
Mm-hmm. I think obviously he did pick up a few injuries like during this time, but yeah, right, like what happened in between, he wasn't exactly booked to the best, you know, his abilities, you know what I mean? Paul Heyman always talks about when WCW and WWE signed up like the ECW guys, they kind of just expected to put them on TV and it would work. And Heyman was saying, no, I had to work with what I had. So I made these guys what they were good at, shine through, and I hid what they were bad at. WWE just kind of threw Taz on TV and went, go, be Taz.
But I think at the same time, it's kind of what Vince has been doing lately and done for the last 18 years. He was their big star and took them away from them. So if you take away the big star, then they'll need to scramble to make another big star. And if they make another big star, you take him. Because they've done that then. Obviously Raven was the big name. took him, then done it with Rhino, took Rhino, and every time they built somebody up, they waved a big contract at them, because obviously, if you ever watch the Rise and Fall ECW, it's kind of, they were skipping from paycheck to paycheck. Between Tommy Dreamer and I think it was Devon even says, if you ever bought an ECW t-shirt, it was probably me and him that put it in the packaging. That's quite bad.
Yeah, Bubba was like head of production at one point, I think, was it production or head of live events or something. He was like producing events and all that, and it was just a bit of a shambles. So as you said, you know, waving a contract to someone, it didn't take much to convince them that, yeah, okay, bye.
Aye, you felt so bad because WCW started doing it as well with like Mike Awesome, Lance Storm, and all the guys. The only guys that kind of stuck around was like RVD, Jerry Lynn, and then when obviously the invasion thing whole happened the year later, paid off for some guys, didn't pay off. Pretty much the whole roster was out of work apart from RVD.
So you mentioned obviously Raven is one of the top guys. He actually makes his debut in this match, helping Taz defeat Lawler. He hits Lawler with a big DDT. Crowd go wild. He stands with a crucifix and pose, and then disappears into the crowd. Time has not been kind to Raven. If you've seen Raven nowadays, the handsome young drifter lookalike here is not the man now. Yes, he is. The sort of Kurt Cobain grunge, sort of 90s rebellion period. That's kind of what he inspired. Now he just kind of looks like Uncle Fester for the Addams Family.
Something was like, what did they say? Aye, that's spot on, mate. That is actually spot on. This is the last time we see Jerry Lawler in the ring for a while. He doesn't really get back into the ring till like the whole right to censor thing with the cat in 2001. And Taz and Raven, you thought, oh, maybe there's a team here, you know, maybe they're going to, you know, team up together, the whole ECW connection. No, just nothing comes from it. It's just Raven shows up, DDT's Lawler. Okay, bye. Aye, when Raven came in, they kind of just started flinging. Don't get me wrong, one of my most favourite matches, it was good because of the ECW guys. It was Backlash 2001, I'm sure it was. It was the 6-man hardcore match, and Saturn, Raven, Rhino, and Taz were all in it, and it was actually a really good match.
Is that the one Jeff swings from like the...
Aye.
Aye, I know exactly what you're talking about. Aye.
They played the music at the end. They played the Hardy Boys music, and it was Crash Holly that won.
It's alright, they gave the wrong person the belt at the end of the WrestleMania 2000 one. They gave it to Hardcore when Crash had won.
No, I said it.
So next match, just in the sort of the other section, we have X-Pac versus Chris Jericho. DX is dead, X-Pac is on his own. He's still cutting about with the DX gear on though, just like that sort of, you know, there's that sort of person, see when you see boy bands split up, these manufactured ones you see on the X Factor, and you'll see the one that can actually sing goes on to do stuff, and the other 4 show up for Campus and the Garage to do like boy bands of the early 2000s with like the remnants of the other shit people. This is kind of what this was kind of what X-Pac was doing here. Like, hey, remember I was in DX? And people were just like, so?
So you think that's the only thing, right? At the time when X-Pac came in again in 1998 when he left WCW and left WCW 6, and then he came in as X-Pac, building your character around the faction is maybe not the best idea, because when the faction goes under, you're going with it.
No, yeah, absolutely, I agree. Something me and Steve... Yeah,
example.
Gangrel was an entrance, and that was it.
Yes.
And as soon as that went, it was... something me and Steven talked about was obviously DX, the original DX, Michael, Rude, Triple H and China. Then the whole 98 versus The Nation up until like maybe about February 99 was sensational. Then they just kind of watered it down and watered it down and watered it down. And it got to the point the month before on SummerSlam, Road Dogg's fighting X-Pac. No one cared. It was getting boring chants. And here we have X-Pac a month later. He's about to fight Chris Jericho, and X-Pac heat is in full force here. And it doesn't help that at this point, Chris Jericho and Jeff Hardy were possibly the most over people that weren't the likes of The Rock and Stone Cold and Kane and what have you.
You know, I thought it was quite ironic because, I mean, when Jericho first came in, they kind of had him in a rivalry with X-Pac.
Mm-hmm.
Was it no Unforgiven 1999? It was X-Pac and Jericho.
I think it was. I can just double check now because I'm
sure it was Jericho. Remember they gave him that stupid bodyguard?
Oh, Mr. Hughes.
Aye.
Yeah, I remember. Just looking at the card now. X-Pac defeated Chris Jericho with Curtis Hughes by disqualification.
Aye. So, I mean, there you go. The same match a year later, but they've just switched it. They've made Jericho obviously super face because he's getting over and he's dropped the stupid top knot ponytail and the bodyguard. And as you say, X-Pac, DX is kind of done, and the only thing they can really do with him is make him just constantly attack Jericho. I'm hoping they were padded nunchucks. Because some of the hits he hits him with, I'm like, mate, I would shove them down your throat if you hit me that hard with real ones.
Yeah, obviously, as you said, the roles reversed. Jericho, the super over babyface here. And we see throughout the match, every time Jericho sort of gets going, X-Pac hits him with that sort of spinning heel kick. As much as he was hated here and much as he was a heel, I used to think X-Pac's offense was really cool. His moveset was one of the best in WWF. It was just the fact that, as you said, they'd built his character around a faction. The faction had died. He had maybe overstayed his welcome in that sort of character role, and he was getting, X-Pac heat, and it was just a case of he's good, but we just need to find something new for him, and he was going up against Chris Jericho. It was bad circumstances.
See, I think but they let him change his, didn't let him change his name, but he changed his attire and he became X-Pac and done that X Factor with Just Incredible and Albert, which was the most confusing stable ever. I'm like, why would these three guys be together?
I know, it was weird as well. We were saying, if you build your thing round a faction, you're in trouble. So what we're going to do, let's give them a new faction, but see, instead of giving them, the Outlaws, who were the best tag team in WWF at the time before the Hardys and Edge and Christian and all that came in, instead of giving them Triple H, instead of giving them China, let's give them Albert, who no one cared about when Test and Trish Stratus beat the hell out of him. And let's give them Just Incredible, the ECW guy who we've made no reference about for the past 6 months.
The giraffe-like neck. It's just... I said that for years. See, when they split up the whole DX, Billy Gunn was good enough to go on his own. He had a different look for the DX. He had obviously his own gear, so he could just move to the side. I'd have just left him and Road Dogg as a tag team. Just leave them as a tag team. But no, they then gave Road Dogg K-Quick, which is now R-Truth, and that fell on its arse as well. And I'm like,
yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Ironically,
I think maybe at the time there was so much going on, a lot of guys might have got missed.
Yeah. Ironically enough, next time we see Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, China and K-Quick are on a Survivor Series team. They call it a DX reunion, but none of them are like using the DX gimmick. China's the Ninth Wonder of the World. Billy Gunn is the one Billy Gunn. Road Dogg is Rowdy Road Dogg, and K-Quick obviously was never in DX. He was just sort of, he's the pal.
you know the closest
He's-
came to a DX reunion? Remember the Survivor Series team of Shawn Michaels, Triple H, the Hardys, and CM Punk?
Mhm.
That's the closest you've came to a DX reunion.
I know. I know. DX, it always gets compared, I think, to obviously the NWO, and obviously the NWO ended up a bit too much, but NWO was far and away the better stable, I think. DX, I think, it gets a lot of rose-tinted viewing, if you get me. But after that whole 97 to WrestleMania 99 sort of era, it was just watered down, and they never quite reconnected.
Aye, I was going to just as you said that, I was going to say, WrestleMania 15, the kind of the bullet in the head. They just,
Yeah, because they had Billy in the hardcore division when he should have been in the Intercontinental division, and Road Dogg in the Intercontinental division when he should have been in the hardcore division.
aye, because then you had Triple H versus Kane,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't even
X-Pac.
remember what it done with. What did they do, X-Pac?
He was fighting Shane McMahon for the European title.
So it was. I liked that feud, don't get me wrong, that was a really, really good feud. Hated Shane. I was like, please, wreck his jaw.
It was just... Anyway, we'll get back to the actual match we're talking about, because we're going down a rabbit hole.
That's
But,
what the match was.
It was a decent enough match, but when these guys come out and JR goes, this could be match of the night right here, and it gets about 6 minutes, you end up just thinking that could have been so much more. And that's why it's on the... There you go, 9 minutes, 3 seconds it got. Didn't feel like it.
No, I agree with that. It could have been match in the night, but it just... I don't know. I'm sure it's one of the things when you say it's a good match, but you say just say it's a good match. It's a good match, but you can't even say the but.
Yeah, it's one of these ones that's to continue the feud. These guys will meet next month at No Mercy in a cage match. We see after Jericho gets the win by submission, X-Pac breaks out the nunchucks again and just goes to town on them. So it's one of those, it's good for what it was, to build the storyline to the cage match.
I mean, if you know it's going to continue, you don't want to blow it all out in the one match, and then the match after it, people will go, should just stop. Because if they'd done an outstanding match then when they done the cage match, they didn't really need to do that. It just ended at the last match.
Mm-hmm.
So there's sometimes you can't win.
So, just on our last match of the best of the rest sort of thing, Eddie Guerrero versus Rikishi for the Intercontinental title. So we're starting to see Eddie become the jealous boyfriend. He wasn't jealous when he was European champion. He wasn't jealous when China was helping him retain the title. He told China he wasn't jealous when she picked up the win in the mixed tag match at SummerSlam to become the Intercontinental champion. He accidentally, and that's in air quotes, pins China in a triple threat match with Val Venus when he hugs her to see if she's okay, pinning her shoulders to the mat to become Intercontinental champion. China was such an attraction at this time. Eddie comes out and puts his hand in the air with the belt. The fans cheer, but not as much as they cheer when China puts her hands up in the air. They go absolutely wild. Eddie goes, put your hands down, about me. And throughout the match, you just see Eddie starting to use tactics that China disapproves of, and it's starting to lead to that Latino heat sort of dying and becoming it's like the stopgap between Latino heat and Lie, Cheat and Steal Eddie, the sort of just slimy heel Eddie that we've seen for about 2 years.
I remember watching this and I'm like, well, it's good to see WWE is making a domestic abuse relationship, but it seemed a bit, I'm like, I've seen this already with Mark Merrow and Sable.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm like, this has already happened. I'm like, why are they pushing this there? And I'm not being funny, but I'm like, China is bigger than Eddie. So,
Yeah, she can.
should she not be bullying him?
I actually never thought of that, because this is actually the first ever pay-per-view that I watched, like, that I ever got my mum and dad to stay up and record for me. 2000's my era of wrestling. I know obviously of the Sable and Mark Marrow storyline, but it's for going back and watching, so I never really thought, like, yeah, actually this is the Mark Marrow Sable storyline again. Like, he's jealous because he's woman, and China at this time was in Playboy. They referenced that she's a centerfold.
So it's Sable?
Exactly, it's the exact same. I know, you're absolutely spot on. We see he's defending his title against Rikishi. We see he uses China to distract Rikishi. He goes to leave. China says, no, get back and fight. She throws him back in the ring. Rikishi has the match won with a banzai drop, which I have a problem with because he always hods the ropes. Like, that's, like, no, it shouldn't count.
Well, that's another thought. That's a good point. Because if you dod the ropes in... good point.
China breaks up the pin. Rikishi loses the plot, saying, who the hell do you think you are getting involved in my business? And he just throws China and Eddie both about like they're wet trackies. Eddie retains via DQ. He doesn't seem too upset that China's injured, and obviously this storyline continues on into the breakup of China and Eddie, which is a shame because I really enjoyed the European title run that Eddie was on.
I mean, it was... I did quite enjoy it. It was... The China Eddie thing is to say, it kind of... Obviously back then, the whole kayfabe thing, I didn't know Eddie was actually married to Vicky till like 1990.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, oh well, it's a weird couple, but okay. But no, it did work quite well together, but then at the same time I'm kind of like, she's in the King of the Ring, she's throwing the Road Dogg about, she's battering Triple H, she's having matches. I mean, she had the triple threat with Hardcore Holly and Jericho at the Royal Rumble, and she held her own. And then she's gone back to playing this dainty, frightened wallflower thing. I'm like, I'm pretty sure she could leather me if she wanted.
No, very true. It's a weird time for women's wrestling. So far on the show, while we've been reviewing it, up until Fully Loaded, Stephanie McMahon was the women's champion. She eventually loses the title to Lita on an episode of Raw. There is no women's title match on SummerSlam or Unforgiven. I'm trying not to look up match cards too far in advance, because I want to be surprised when I turn it on and there is a women's title match, you know what I mean? Because I don't know when the next one is. I'm pretty sure it might be the Royal Rumble.
That'll be the Royal Rumble 2001, won't it?
Yeah, probably Ivory versus China, actually.
There wasn't, because that was the thing. You couldn't really put the women's title on China because it's kind of like putting, as Jim Cornette said, you didn't want to put the world title on Andre the Giant because technically, who could take it off him?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's how they technically gave him it, and then he sold it to Teddy DiBiase because they're like, there's no realistic way. I think that's kind of what's maybe with the whole Braun Strowman thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of, you can't expect one. I think that's what killed the Big Show's career, not his career, but whole character, was the fact that he had the world title and he get beat by it for it, and I'm like, this guy's 500 pounds and 7 foot plus. It should take an army to bring him down. And there's times we've seen Jericho beat him, The Rock beat him one-on-one, Austin beat him one-on-one, all these guys beat him one-on-one, and you're like, so he ain't that tough, is he?
You know, there's a statistic about Big Show. Now they always talk about how many people is it going to take to get Big Show at the Royal Rumble. Do you know it's never taken more than one man to get Big Show at the Royal Rumble? He's always been he's always been straight up eliminated.
I think the clock told me that obviously with Braun Strowman now, because it's always like, when you see the ring starting to pile with bodies, you're like, oh, Braun's got it.
Aye. They did that in the the 2016 Rumble as well. They had about 10 people in, but he still managed to eliminate like 2 or 3 of them while they try to do their moves. Like Ty Dillinger went to charge him, and he just kind of grabbed him by the top knot and threw him.
But I mean, it's back to the match. But the match was decent on its own. Yeah, again, what was the time for it? It was only 7 minutes. 6.5 minutes. Do you know what's weird? See, when I used to wrestle, we get told your match is no less than like 10, 12 minutes. And I'm like, these guys are pros, and they're getting paid mega money, and they're doing 6-minute matches.
Yeah, it's a bit. It's a weird time for wrestling. It's such a fondly remembered time, but there is lots of filler. Like Stephen said to me when we were doing the SummerSlam review, he went, "It's about the first hour of this pay-per-view. You're just like, this is garbage," because you've got on SummerSlam the first hour is Right to Censor v Too Cool Rikishi, X-Pac and Road Dogg that goes 4 minutes, Eddie Guerrero and Trish. It's in China versus Trish and Val Venus. Jerry Lawler versus Taz that only goes about 4 minutes. And then the crowd pick up about match 5 because it's a hardcore title match with Blackman and Shane McMahon, which is kind of a good segue. It leads us into our first match we're going to put a spotlight on. It is the 10-man hardcore open. Sorry, the 6-man hardcore open at 10-minute time limit. The hardcore champion Steve Blackman versus Perry Saturn, Test, Crash Holly, Al Snow, and a wild Funaki appears for the first time since WrestleMania. Something I didn't like about this match, and it's just like before it, I mentioned it on these shows quite a lot. Eddie Guerrero was my favourite European champion. He had great matches with Chris Jericho, Essa Rios, Dean Malenko, Perry Saturn on the pay-per-views. He had about a 5-month reign with the title. At SummerSlam, there's a stink face match between the Cat and Terry. Al Snow's in the Cat's corner. European champion Perry Saturn is now in Terry's corner. Then on a random episode of Raw, Al Snow wins the title. Then Al Snow comes out dressed like an Italian and gives Michael Cole a picture of Tony Danza on commentary. And the hardcore title was a fun thing, but at the same time you're like, surely the European title should be getting defended. Like, if Al Snow and Perry Saturn have a rivalry, you saw that these guys could actually go. Let's put them in the ring and have them have a match. We could easily get 2 other people to be in this match.
See, I mean, with the matches being so short, I mean, this pay-per-view altogether was what, 2 hours and 45 minutes?
Yeah, just about, I think.
Aye. Pay-per-views now. First match is like 2 hours and 45 minutes. But, as you say, you could easily have put in, especially if the match is only going to be 6 or 7 minutes, you could easily have put in Al Snow against somebody, because, I mean, the roster then was immense. The roster was massive. I mean, you could have maybe even done Al Snow as like an open challenge, and Raven, Whitemout, Lawler in that match. It could have reappeared and challenged for that. Boom. You had Al Snow versus Raven, 2 ECW guys just kicking the shit at each other. That would have been, there you go, pop, boom.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But as you say, I kind of wondered, why is the European title? And then you're like, what? So if Al Snow wins this, he's got to be the European and hardcore champion.
Yeah, he's put himself through hell when he's already got a belt that only has to be defended in matches for a belt that could get taken off him in the parking lot.
Aye. Or a bouncy castle, or a hotel room.
Oh, exactly. But from a negative to a positive, Steve Blackman round about this time was an absolute nut job. I thought he was great. I thought his character was great. I thought the whole fighting hardcore champion thing, we've seen Riddick Moss with the fighting 24/7 champion thing, and no one cares because it's Riddick Moss. But
Aye.
Steve Blackman, he came out, he had just the plain gear on. He just looked like a normal guy. But he brings out, the sticks. He brings out the kendo sticks. He brings out the weapons. And even when he's not got the weapons, those kicks, those strikes, he's just such a badass. He's like, he's like one of the boss levels in a martial arts game. He looked in the ring. He just looked so cool. And around about this time, he was kind of at his peak, I think. And it's really just a showcase to show how tough Blackman is this match.
I love Blackman as the hardcore champion, and I did really think he was going to go further. I was like, I'd maybe change his gear to like an MMA style gear.
Yeah,
to make him a bit more, like not just a martial artist, but a bit more all-rounder.
Yeah, because they did have the rivalry with Shamrock, the original.
I actually like that rivalry.
Yeah, we'll talk a wee bit about it later, because they referenced that rivalry during the Stone Cold thing. Did I mention Test? I think I forgot Test.
No,
By
I
the way,
forgot
Test.
Test.
This match, not anybody cares. Al Snow, Crash Holly, Test, Perry Saturn, Steve Blackman, Funaki. A fun back and forward match. I liked Crash Holly in this match. His antics in the hardcore division are sort of like R-Truth's now. It doesn't matter how many times he wins it. Every time there's something new, there's something funny, and it always puts a smile on your face. There's only 3 falls in the match. Crash picks up one of them. Test with an absolute belter of a bin shot to Steve Blackman's dome. He leans over to get the cover, and Crash hits him with a trash can lid. Test falls to the floor. He dives out, pins Steve Blackman, and then I was pissing myself at this for about 10 minutes. Crash runs up the ramp. You hear JR go, he only has to hold on for 6 minutes, and as he says it, all you hear is dunk, as Perry Saturn just hits him with a bin. 1, 2, 3, Crash loses the title in about 30 seconds, and you just hear JR going, oh well, that's not going to happen.
See, I agree with you on that way. See, if there was no Crash Holly, I don't think the hardcore division would have been as good as it was.
No, I think, like, the fact that Crash came and went for the sort of fun stuff and gave it sort of memorable moments, and then they did have matches like Raven, Big Show, Kane, Blackman, Shane McMahon, the Battle Royal sort of thing at WrestleMania. They did have matches, but at the same time, Crash always brought an enjoyment. Like, whenever interest was fading, he would come back in and just sort of bring the interest back up again.
So, I mean, the segments where you randomly went backstage, there's a camera guy walking about with a camera, and then you see Crash Holly, you always heard the crowd start to cheer, because they're like, something's going to happen. And then, as I say, there was the times he went in the bouncy castle and he was attacked, and then there was times his hotel room was attacked, and he just constantly kept getting. And then at the point he was drinking, like, I think he says he drank 24 cups of coffee in one day just to stay awake, to still get pinned and stuff like that. That's something like that. It's kind of like after we've done with that 24/7 title, he makes it fun and enjoyable. And then when they needed it to be serious, for, like, obviously say Blackman, Shane, and Big Show and Kane, and the WrestleMania where it was Raven and Kane and that, I did make it more serious. I gave that match a stipulation they can use weapons, but didn't have to keep going, oh, another DQ match, another DQ match, another DQ match. It's like, oh well, they're allowed to use weapons because it's that title. But then when they went, right, it's kind of floundering. How can we get this title to Crash?
And that's the sort of thing I wish they'd do with the 24/7 title, because you could even have, like, we've seen the thing with Drake Maverick. Drake Maverick was quite funny as well with the 24/7 title. If you're having someone who's, a face, like, say someone like Rikishi, you give him 3 or 4 weeks with the belt, and then he's going into a rivalry with Samoa Joe, who's a heel, and Samoa Joe chokes him out. He doesn't want the 24/7 title, he wants a rivalry with Rikishi. that's when Drake Maverick strikes. And then say it was vice versa, Samoa Joe had the title, Ricochet attacks him, and then when he's down, that's when R-Truth, strikes. You know what I mean? You can still have, like, the hardcore title was on people like Big Show, Kane, Raven, Steve Blackman for extended amount of times.
Rhino.
You can still have Rhino, yeah. You can have people have reigns with the belt, like, and long Undertaker have a few week run with the belt, but always have a plan to get it off them, you know what I mean? Because it's not the title that should be held for 6, 7, 8 weeks, as we just seen Riddick Moss hold the 24/7 title for.
See, I mean, that did make the fun part of it. Plus, to me, the 24/7 title is too polished. It's too clean and neat and tidy. The hardcore title was the old WWF title, smashed.
Mm-hmm.
And it gaffer tape at it, and it had bits missing and stuff like that. I'm like, that title is the embodiment of the division. It's rough, it's nasty, it's dirty, it's broken. That's the point of that division. The 24/7 title, I'm like, you just look like an artist who's been told the record sold 1 million copies.
So back to the match, Blackman picks up the win, he gets the title back. He takes some amount of punishment in the last, like, he gets out of the ring. And then, with about 40 seconds to go, he just goes like that to everybody. Right, come on then. And everyone just goes, okay. And it's JR's commentary going, you think one of these brain surgeons would think about going for a cover? And you actually see Funaki sort of click on and go, oh, actually, aye. And you just see them all dogpiling. Blackman eventually gets to the end of the countdown, retains his title. This is sort of as far up as Blackman's career goes. You know what I mean? We see him later on in the night with Stone Cold. But other than that, this is peak Blackman, I think.
See, I thought that was a bit shit. I'm like, why? A guy who's a solid worker, looks the part, has your hardcore title. Why are you throwing him under the bus to Austin?
Well, we'll discuss that a wee bit later on when we get into the Austin return. But we're going to go to another title match. We're going to go to the WWF Tag Team Championships. Edge and Christian, the champions, retained at TLC 1 a month prior against the Hardy Boys. So the Hardy Boys, they've never beaten Edge and Christian for the titles one-on-one. Edge and Christian even saying in the promos, when are you going to learn you can't beat us, boys? The pop for the Hardy Boys at this point, by the way, you hear the screams and it's like the tweens, the teens, the early 20s, all the girls love them. I don't think WWE have had a team in a while that is loved by every demographic that they're trying to conquer, but the Hardy Boys were just so beloved.
Aye, I mean, the Hardys, but this is the thing again though, the time, obviously, as I say, this is kind of your first introduction to Attitude Era, but then it starts to kind of fade out as we get into like 2001 and it kind of just dies in 2002. See, whatever was popular at the time, the looks, the styles, the attitudes and that, the WWE went, well, that could fit the guys, that could fit the guys, and it worked so well. Whereas now, the WWE is so far removed from its fan audience, they've no clue what their fans are into. They know their fans are into wrestling, that's it. They don't know what music they're into, they don't know what actors they're into, they don't know what movies they're into. The only one it kind of does is NXT.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only one that kind of seems like the old Attitude Era where they go, right, people are into this, so we'll have this kind of style. Look at Aleister Black. His attire, his attitude and his gimmick and everything fitted so well. Velveteen Dream, they're another one. It fits so well, but then you get things in the main roster and you're like, this is just fun because they don't know, they have no idea what their fans are into. So Matt and Jeff, at the time, there was the Goths with the baggy combats, the bright lummy vests, the dyed hair. You had Edge and Christian, which were kind of, I think, meant to be like punk goth.
I think they were just meant to be smarmy dicks. Like they were designed to annoy the crowd.
No, when they brought them in with Gangrel and they done the whole brood thing, it was kind of that kind of look.
Yeah, that was sort of like goth eye. Yeah, I do get you.
But you had like the goth rockers and then you had the goth like punk type things.
Aye,
And then you had, like, you had the Dudleys, which were kind of like country bunking guys.
Aye.
But the gimmicks worked so well. They worked so well together. And as I say, the Hardy Boys, you had Matt, who was like sensible and was good in his own right, and then you had Jeff, who was willing to throw himself off anything you pointed at. That's what got them over so much. That Matt had Lita as a missy, so every guy in the place kind of, well done, mate. Susan, she dumps you, I'm in there.
Well, certainly one of the guys in this match. But you talked about Jeff willing to throw himself off anything. He gets pushed off the top of the cage about 2 minutes into the match, going for a swanton on Christian. Edge pushes him off the top of the cage. It leads to a 2-on-1 situation, and I sent you a video in private, and I'm going to mention it on air. For anyone that's never seen it, Google Scott Sterling penalty shootout. This is kind of what it's like when Jeff Hardy is trying to get back into the cage. He tries to climb up one side, and Edge pushes him off. He tries to get off the other side, and Christian hits him with a chair. He tries to get in one side, and Edge and Christian hit both his hands with a chair. It does not happen for him. He gets the key off the referee, and Christian hits him with the door and just goes, "Don't come in." And eventually you just see him go, "Oh, fuck this." He gets a ladder out. Matt's trying to get over. Christian's on top of the cage, and he just goes, "Fuck you," and hits Christian with the ladders, which I thought was hilarious. It was like, yeah, it gets Christian out of the cage, but at the same time, it makes the fight in the ring one-on-one. And for me, it was the highlight of the match. Every time Jeff tried to get back in, he just get knocked off the cage.
See, I thought it was quite smart that they put Jeff out first, because then you kind of went, oh, well, this is a handicap match now. And obviously, say, back when I watched it, I was 14, 15, obviously I didn't know there was no... I knew it was, if wrestling was fake, but it was obviously the kayfabe thing and that. You're kind of like, oh, that's it. There's no chance of winning this, because obviously Jeff's on the outside, so you're like, well, that's it, another win for Edge and Christian. And then as they built the match, Jeff tried to get back in, chair shots, taking out the ladder, try to unlock the door, and then obviously at the end, I think Jeff pulls Christian over, so it's kind of like one each. And then Christian's trying to get back in. Lita hits him with Hurricane Run off the ladder, and then Jeff Whisper wins it. And the crowd just go absolutely insane because they're like, there's a chance. There's a chance this could happen now.
Yeah, they've turned the tide. Like, they've managed to get from being 2-1 down to being 2-1 up now. They've switched it round. And as you mentioned as well, Christian tries to get back in using the ladders that Jeff hit him with to get back onto the cage, and we see Lita, the women's champion, climb up the ladder, jump onto the cage, jump off the cage, Hurricane Rana. It was Lita and Trish. You know, if you didn't watch the Attitude Era, you might think, oh, they're being glorified because, you know, women didn't really have a lot to do back then anyway, so because they were only two women. No, trust me, some of the bumps Lita took, I think she deserves to be in a conversation of her own. You know what I mean? Like, Trish was the better in-ring wrestler, but when it came to bumps and stunts and stuff like that, Lita took a power of punishment.
See, that's the thing that kind of annoys me these days. The intergender wrestling and the matches in WWE, the mixed tag matches, where if the guy tags out, the other guy has to come in. Where I'm like, see, back then, if you done a mixed tag match and the guy get tagged in, the woman's still in, they still went for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, because you saw that the month prior with Eddie Guerrero and China versus Val Venus and Trish sort of match. Val was fighting against China. Eddie came in at one point and Trish was in. She tagged right back out, but she was in. They still could have fought.
but I mean, like, you've seen things like the Dudley Boys power bombing Trish through a table, and then you've seen them do it to like Mae Young, and then you see them do it to Lita, and you see Austin Stunner China, and then you see like, I think Triple H pedigreed Lita at some point. I think he's feud with Jeff. And they're like, oh, women didn't get any respect back then. I'm like, well, they get more respect than they get now, because they're like, well, you're a wrestler, so if the guys can take the hits, you can take the hits. So
Yeah.
I think they get a bit more respect. But in the day now, is like, oh, they can't wrestle the guys because they're wee delicate floors unless they're built like a brick shithouse. So that's the kind that annoys me now.
Yeah, considering WrestleMania this year that we're reviewing went off the air with The Rock, People's Elbow, and Stephanie McMahon, they were never afraid to have the heel female manager take her bumps.
That was the other one, Austin Stunner and Stephanie.
Yeah. The Hardys eventually win the match. They take out Edge with a massive concerto on the top of the cage. Edge, if you wonder why his neck and spine are fucked, it's because he fell 15 feet from the cage back into the ring. And Matt and Jeff climb down together. The crowd go absolutely batshit crazy. And it was done so well because Edge and Christian, from WrestleMania onwards, nobody could get the belts off them. Nobody could, even when they lost the belts, they won them back 2 days later. They'd lose them in Raw, but win them back in SmackDown. Or they'd lose them in SmackDown, but win them back in the pay-per-view. This is the first time the Hardys had beat them in a match for the titles, and the crowd loved it, and it was just such good storytelling, I thought, as well.
And Matt almost took Lita's head off when he hugged her. I always remember that part. I'm like, mate, you almost clotheslined her in the face. But it kind of made it a bit more realistic, that the fact that we've finally done it. They're so overwhelmed, they're so overjoyed that they've finally done it, because they say WrestleMania is with TLC and the ladder matches and stuff like that. It was always Edge and Christian kind of coming out on top.
Yeah, as well, it was the ladder matches were considered the Hardy speciality. And you think WrestleMania 2000, SummerSlam 2000, even when we get to WrestleMania 17, the Hardys never win the ladder match. So when they get into the cage match and they use Edge and Christian's finisher to win it, it just means that bit more.
Aye.
So we move on to what's possibly the second biggest match on the show. Kurt Angle versus Triple H. So I was talking to Stephen about this on the SummerSlam 2000 show. Do you know the original plan for Kurt Angle Triple H's storyline with Stephanie?
No.
So the original plan was that Stephanie would leave Triple H for Kurt Angle, but it was round about this time, and you can tell with the promo package that the fact that Triple H has been made the face, the fact that it's no longer there's tension between Kurt Angle and Stephanie, it's the fact that Kurt Angle's he looks a bit of a sex pest because he just smacks the lips on Stephanie. Stephanie and Triple H are the faces now. This is round about the time Stephanie took over creative, and apparently Triple H said in a creative meeting, well, look at me and look at Kurt Angle. Do you think Stephanie would really leave me for him? And apparently Gerald Briscoe clamped him because he said, well, Kurt Angle's an Olympic gold medalist shoot fighter. If it came down to a real fight, he'd kick your ass without breaking a sweat.
See, that was the thing though. I mean, at the time, obviously you can tell Triple H is getting his feet under the table, because he's getting pretty much what he wants. He's getting kind of control and creative of what his matches do and who he is. So I mean, it's one of the things where at the time, but yet again, I didn't know Kurt Angle was married to his missus back then. So I did think this guy should be arrested for this, because stetting lassies in their sleep. Pretty sure that's against the law.
Yeah, because obviously we've seen the kiss before SummerSlam where Stephanie kisses him back, and Stephanie on SummerSlam. I mean, Kurt is a good kisser, and it's like adding to the tension. We see at the end of SummerSlam, Rock pins Triple H, but Kurt carries Stephanie to safety. But the storyline immediately changes now that Stephanie's on creative. It's no longer there's tension. It's that Kurt Angle's pursuing her against her will. It's no longer that Triple H is a jealous husband. It's that he's the poor face. He's the put upon husband. You know what I mean? He's now the good guy. And it's a storyline that could have had so much more and could have went further, but it's just a case of, no, we're not continuing this. It's sort of the influence of Triple H and Stephanie there.
See one of the promos, and I'm like, you could never do this promo in this day and age. See when he was insinuating that Kurt was gay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, you could never do that promo now because the heat and the backlash would be unreal.
Well, you look at not even 2 years later, about a year and a half later, where they insinuate that Billy and Chuck are gay.
Aye.
And they go to do the wedding, and then Billy and Chuck go, whoa, whoa, why would we be gay? And they make fun of what being gay would be. And the backlash they got for that, you know, you couldn't do that. Obviously, as you said, nowadays, you couldn't even do it a year and a half later. But you can tell that's the Triple H influence, that's Triple H in Stephanie's ear in the lead up to this match going, yeah, why don't we make it that, you know, I'm the cool guy and I'm not threatened by geeky Kurt Angle. Why don't we just say he's gay? He's gay, yeah. And you're just like, Jesus Christ, this is why Triple H is loved now for his sort of NXT stuff. But people like Bret Hart and what have you, and shoot interviews, people that lived through, you know, the reign of terror on Raw, like 2003, 2004. This is why people are kind of like, I don't like him. And you can see why when you go back and look at it.
He's I think it's kind of when him and his missus have got creative control, they're quite young, so they're quite arrogant, whereas now Triple H kind of grew up, he's matured, and now he's got power and control. It's the best thing in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. So we see a couple of match segments with Mick Foley through the night. Kurt Angle says to Mick Foley, you know, I'm not scared of Triple H, you know, what are you going to do about this? What are you going to do about this situation? And Mick says,
Steve Austin almost kicked my ass. Like,
yeah,
oh, he succeeded.
He succeeded, that's what I heard. Mick says he's going to do nothing. In fact, he's going to do less than nothing because Kurt Angle pulled a stunt with the sledgehammer on SmackDown prior. He's going to make it a no disqualification match. And Triple H is going to get injured ribs heading into this. You think Kurt Angle would be glad it's no DQ because he can get away with it. You know what I mean? He can go after the ribs with a sledgehammer again, end it quickly.
But I think, obviously, the head cut is the clean cut, goody type guy, but didn't want to use weapons, didn't want to wrestle outside the ring. Do you know I'm sitting and watch this whole match going, I'm pretty sure this is the one where Triple H goes to pedigree cut and table buckles.
Oh no, that was a month prior, yeah. About SummerSlam.
SummerSlam.
Yeah.
Aye, I get myself confused. I'm pretty sure that was that one. Also, how weird is it watching Kurt Angle wrestle when he's got hair?
Yeah. Wrestle with hair.
You see him so long with bald. You see him hair, you're like, you look weird.
It's not even that. He's like, obviously, with all the neck surgeries and all that, he was sort of crouched. Like later in his career, it's the fact of how skinny and lanky he is. You know, he's still built, but like he's skinny and he's tall and he's got hair, and you're just like, this is not the Kurt Angle we see. You know, even 6 years later, at 2006 One Night Stand facing Randy Orton, this is someone completely different.
I think that's why they kind of changed him to the wrestling machine, because he looked more compact and more.
Yeah,
like a pit fighter almost than he did look like an Olympic athlete.
That sort of gimmick should have been given to Taz, considering he was, a wee compact squat guy in a singlet.
Aye, see, I thought to myself, 2000 Taz versus like 2006 Kurt Angle would have been immense.
Yeah.
That would have just been basically like Brock Lesnar versus Brock Lesnar. Just people would get flung about left, right, and centre.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, right, I'm going to suplex you, and you're going to suplex me, and then guess what? You're going to suplex me, and I'm going to suplex you.
The actual match itself, it's a great match. Like Kurt Angle, Triple H, they mesh well together. You don't really see them again together till they have a wee feud in between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania in 2002, and then they don't really match up again until WrestleMania 34 in the mixed tag match with Rousey and Stephanie McMahon.
Well, no, did they not have the... What was the... Was it no Austin Triple H versus Benoit angle?
No, it's Benoit and Jericho.
Oh, so it is.
But then
I know what you mean now.
Aye, because the two-man power trip, it's Benoit and Jericho. But then on SmackDown, it's like the uneasy alliance between Benoit and Angle. See, I mixed myself up there. This was something I was getting mixed up with the other night because I believe it's a Judgment Day. Shane has a match, Judgment Day 2000. Shane has a match with Big Show, but it's not the one where he dives off the Titantron. That's Backlash the next year, and that's what I was saying to Stephen. I went, we do that many of these that they do, and there's so many memories from the Attitude Era and so much happening that it just sort of meshes into one big ball. And you're like, was that then? No, that was that. That was this. That was, and you need to just kind of like, you end up with a. Have you ever seen Always Sunny in Philadelphia when Charlie Day's got the big? Well, you've seen the GIF. It's like the big map that just makes no sense.
Aye.
Yeah, that's what it's like, and it's just Pepe Silva in the middle, and we're trying to figure out the Pepe Silva.
I mean, aye, there was a lot of times where you're like, the main way you can only tell it was Kane's gear. You're like, what's Kane wearing? Is it red and black, or is it black and red, or is it the see-through tank top?
Mm-hmm.
And they go, see-through tank top. Right, that was late 2000.
That's actually a really good point, actually. Like when he's got, if he's got two sleeves, it's 88. If he's got one sleeve, it's 99, 2000. If he's got the see-through top, it's mid 2000.
Kane was a human bookmark.
Yeah. Although this is where it gets sort of messy because he wears this attire for SummerSlam 2000 to like April 2002. So like, if this is where it gets sort of messy.
Aye, well, for 2002, you had Invasion and you had a whole pile of shit after that, so...
Aye. Anyway, we're getting off track. We've been doing that quite a lot in this review. Triple H wins, by the way. It's a good match. It's a good back and forth match. You'd like to see more for these guys, but knowing the fact that this was going to be so much more and that Triple H sort of used his influence and so did Stephanie to get it sort of nixed, kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth. But when we review next month's No Mercy, you'll see why Kurt Angle gets the last laugh. So, Stone Cold Steve Austin, the show's sort of built around his return. The first time we see him, he shows up to the arena in his truck. Kevin Kelly's all excited. Stone Cold's here, Stone Cold's here. Stone Cold says, I'm not here to answer questions, I'm here to ask them, and throws Kevin Kelly into the shutters. I always like those useless big metal poles they used to have, and they used to always put them against the shutter doors in the Attitude Era, so that when someone hit the shutter doors, they would fall and make such a noise, and it would make it seem so much more devastating.
Aye, because when you're away and your cousin flings you at a set of garage doors, you realise that doesn't make as much impact as it does in the telly.
Right. It doesn't.
They're missing metal
It
poles.
doesn't make as much noise, but he's flung with full force into an actual garage door. That actually hurt.
But no, it was. I watched it obviously, and then Austin get took out with the limo, rent a car. I'll not spoil who does it.
Yeah.
But he's a bad man. But no, it was, when Austin came back, honestly, I was watching this in my house at Channel 4. Was it on Channel 4 this one?
Yes.
Was it on Channel 4? Aye.
Sammy, it was still on Channel 4. I know Heat was. I think as of 2001, all of it goes on to... No, sorry. Unforgiven was on Sky. Because I taped it on Sky.
I must have got a copy off my cousin then, but I remember when I watched this, I seen it and I popped. I was in the house and I was like, oh! And it's the first thing he does, as you say, he just slams him into a garage door and you're like, yay! Who's next?
So, for people who don't know the Austin storyline, he was run over at Survivor Series 1999. It was never revealed who did it, while he was away. Austin was off to, recuperate from neck injuries that didn't quite heal, stemming from the Owen Hart incident. He had knee surgery in that time. You see him with a big knee brace on. So Austin goes away to recuperate, and all fingers point to The Rock, because it was The Rock's rent-a-car, but The Rock apparently had an alibi that basically ruled him out. So the storyline heading in was it was The Rock's rent-a-car, but no one knows who did it. We touched on this segment a wee bit earlier. Kurt Angle meets Stone Cold for the first time, shakes his hand, gives Stone Cold an Olympic in brackets gold medal, says it's not as big as mine, but you didn't do anything to earn it, so maybe just take it and leave me. And Austin goes, yeah, I'll put this somewhere real nice. I'll stick it straight up your ass, and then just proceeds to beat down Kurt Angle. This is the sort of Austin I think they wanted to return. They were trying to recapture the old magic, but I think something we discussed on previous podcasts, The Rock's rise up the card and Triple H's rise up the card. When Austin comes back, there's still the pop for him. He's still possibly the biggest guy in the company, but it's not as big a margin anymore. You know what I mean? It's not peak 98, 99 Stone Cold anymore. It's died down, if you get me.
See, I mean, the only thing was that you had Austin, when he beat Michaels, obviously become WWE champion. You then had Dude Love take him on, and Undertaker and Kane. Nobody who's a really serious threat, but as I say, when he went away, Rock started going up, Triple H started going up, Benoit started going up. Who's the person looking for who went up? Angle, sorry, aye. They started then coming up, so then you've got people like who are legit threats. And
yeah,
he came back and you're like, oh, it's like the old magic, but then you're like, well, he's not going to be able to run roughshod through these guys, because you've got Undertaker who's came back with American Badass gimmick, so
yeah,
you've not really got anybody who can come back, run roughshod through it and do what he wants with it. It's kinda, he's not the big fish in a small pond, he's just a fish in a normal pond.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think he's still, obviously, he's on a par with The Rock at this point. Before he went away, he was ahead of The Rock by a good bit. I think he's on a par with The Rock now. And the thing with The Rock, because he was heel and face throughout his career, whereas Austin was always the anti-hero, The Rock could go heel and then come back and just recapture the magic. Whereas when Austin turns later with McMahon, it doesn't. It kind of ruined it, I think.
See, no, I think the opposite. I think the heel turn with Austin was the right thing, because it'd be like Cena. You can't have him as a face all the time. So turning him heel and then him going with McMahon, and then obviously Invasion comes in, he turns heel again. I was like, that's probably the right thing to do, because Austin, it's kind of like that expression, the candle that burns twice as bright burns half as long.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a perfect thing to do with Austin. He came in, he was massive, mega heat, got people back into wrestling, and I think kind of just started to kind of fade out, which the guys should be doing, because there's guys in the know who I'm like, you've been around too long. There's nothing for you. There's literally nothing. Like, that's why Jericho said he went to AEW. There's nothing for him today.
See, I wouldn't have had him turn with McMahon, but I do agree that heel Stone Cold had some great stuff. You know, the power trip, the rivalry with Benoit and Jericho, the Invasion stuff. He was a forefront of that. I just think it, for someone like Stone Cold, I think he should have obviously ended up walking out on the company. He was frustrated, but his stuff in 2002, it sort of peters out, whereas for someone like Stone Cold, you'd expect it to still have an interest and then eventually have that big send-off, which I don't think... I think he got a send-off in a way because his last match is with The Rock, but we're getting ahead of ourselves, I think.
No, I know what you mean. It's like he should have had one big bang, and then that should have been it.
Yeah,
but it didn't make it that way.
We see segments with The Rock. He says he knows The Rock didn't do it. The Rock and Stone Cold are cool for now. Does he have any idea? The Rock says he doesn't. He goes to see Stephanie McMahon. It was the quote here where he says to Stephanie, because she gives him his hat back, it's the exact same hat he's wearing, and he goes, "Wow, don't I feel great? I haven't found the son of a bitch that hit me with a car, but I got a free hat." And then we mentioned it earlier, Shane McMahon's in the ring. He claims to know who hit Stone Cold. He shows footage of the Ken Shamrock Steve Blackman rivalry, where Blackman hit Shamrock with a car. But he lures Blackman to the ring. Austin comes out, stuns Blackman. Shane thinks, yes, got one up on him. Shane's trying to get back at Steve Blackman for, taking him off the structure at SummerSlam and taking his hardcore title. We see Austin have a beer with Shane McMahon, and no matter what we said earlier about Stone Cold, it's always the look on a McMahon's face when they're having a beer and Austin puts his beer down and they go, "Oh no," and it's the realisation Vince does it and Shane does it. They're going to get stunned.
See, do you know what I think the greatest hero of the Attitude Era was? See the guy who threw the beer cans to Austin?
Yeah, I think it was Mark Yates. He was the old WWE timekeeper. I think it might still be the timekeeper.
Because you always see these beer cans flying out of somewhere, and Austin, I'm like, see whoever that guy is, they two are in sync.
Yeah, because he used to properly, he would launch it. Sometimes Austin would be halfway up the ramp and he'd go, "Throw me another one," and the guy would absolutely eat it and it would clear the ring and then land. And 9 times out of 10, if Austin didn't catch it, that was on Austin because the throw was always perfect.
I'm like, this guy must work for the NFL or something. It's like Tom Brady just sitting there with a 6-pack. Alright, let's do this.
There was one I remember feel at an end of it was a SmackDown or a Raw. I can't remember when it was, but they're in the ring, and I think it's a segment with Undertaker, Rock, and Austin standing tall, and Rock asks for a beer. It gets thrown at him, and it hits him that hard that he drops it, and you see him like shaking his wrist, going, "Fuck me, that was sore." And then you see Undertaker. They go to throw it at Undertaker, and it just goes through his fingers, and you just see Undertaker going, "Motherfucker." So he must have had some arm on him. But the mystery of the bad man that hit Steve, that ran over Stone Cold, is still at large. It wasn't Steve Blackman. Austin didn't fall for it. He wanted to kick some ass. The crowd loved it. The pop when he comes out. is unreal. We haven't seen Austin since Backlash 2000. We haven't seen, this is the return of him full time for the first time since Survivor Series 1999. So it's been nearly a year. We've seen him once. So the crowd are hot for Austin. So no matter who he stunned, I think they would have been fine with it.
Aye, pretty much. Austin, he battered the Just Joe guy. And it was just a guy relaying some information, and people loved it. So they pretty much could have got about battering people in the arena, and people would have been totally fine with that.
I did like the bit Joe said, "I've got some information you might want to hear." Austin's there for answers, and then Austin goes, "Well, I heard Just Joe's a sorry son of a bitch," and beats him up, and you just think, hang on a minute, Austin, he might have had that information, mate. Like, what are you throwing him out the locker room for?
I think it's kind of, you want to figure it out on your own. You want to let somebody hit you with a motor. You want somebody to come round your house and go, "I know who done it." You're like, "No, I'm going to go door to door with a claw hammer, and I'm going to figure out who done it my way."
So that leads us to, with all we were going to make this like just under an hour. With all our fantasy booking, we're at an hour and 20 minutes in so far. So we're just going to go on to our main event, our last match of the night. The WWF Championship on the line in a fatal four-way. The Rock versus Chris Benoit, Kane and The Undertaker. The Rock's promo before this, I thought was hilarious.
Aye.
Michael Cole asks Rock, "Do you think Benoit, Kane and Undertaker want your WWF title?" He goes, "How do you know what they want? Maybe Kane wants a pack of matches so he could light his big wrecked ass on fire. Maybe Benoit wants to lick his left testicle. Maybe Undertaker wants to ride his bike round the First Union Centre because it gives him that special feeling." And honestly, it was peak Rock. This is peak Rock. This is why Austin, when he comes back, is still over as ever, but he's not as over because people are gravitating towards. This is where the Rock Stone Cold sort of conversation comes into play, I think.
Aye, I mean, you kind of needed that rivalry because, say, you had to bulb guys up for Austin to go against, and the feuds that it produced, say Austin versus Triple H, Austin versus The Rock, or The Rock versus Triple H, the three guys who were the main head hitters in that era, and the way they were built up, it just made it so much bigger than what it was.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely, I agree with you. Benoit coming off a 2 out of 3 falls classic win against Chris Jericho the month prior. Kane and Undertaker have just started a rivalry. They had a no contest at SummerSlam when Undertaker took Kane's mask off. So they're all trying to scrap with each other. This match, the best way you can describe it, Attitude Carnage at its best. There's twists, there's turns, there's false finishes, there's about 1,000 finishers, there's chair shots, stair shots, tables, everything. And the crowd are hot throughout the entirety of this match.
See, I wouldn't say there's 1,000 finishers, because obviously now in most matches there's like 3 or 4 finishers hot and kickouts. There was a lot of chair shots, aye, but The Undertaker and Kane never hot a tombstone. Benoit hot a crossface. I think Rock only hot one rock bottom. He didn't get a chance to hit the people's elbow. He got interrupted, didn't he?
Yeah, it was that sort, but it's that sort of thing. Like they were going for that many finishers.
Aye, they were going for the pin.
Yeah.
There was a lot of pin attempts, and that's what made you kind of, because it kind of back then is to say you didn't need to hit like 3 Canadian destroyers in a brainbuster to think, oh, there's a possibility there's going to be a pin here. It was a case of like, say, like Kane just rocking somebody with a chair shot, and then Benoit comes in and rocks Undertaker with a chair shot, and then out of nowhere there's a Kane hot a power slam on The Rock, and you're like, oh well, there's a good chance this might be it. So it was kind of unpredictable.
It's one of my favourite matches. I think I just remember it. Like, even when I watched it back, I remember it with sort of rose-tinted glasses, because as I said, this is the first pay-per-view I ever taped. It's the first pay-per-view I ever watched. So, and plus, we'll talk about the winner in a minute. my guy. But before we get to the actual finish of the match, there's a ref bump, there's carnage, Undertaker's down, Benoit gets the pin. Undertaker has his feet in the rope, but Hebner doesn't notice. Or maybe he does, he's got a history of screwy finishes. Hebner counts the 3, Benoit's announced as the champion. He runs up the ramp with a belt, and Mick Foley comes out and just goes, yeah, that's not happening. Back to the ring. This is why I liked Foley as a commissioner, because he did that constantly. He would get involved in matches, he would say, no screwy finishes, no, and he would do it for the heels and the faces. It's not like the general manager now, where it's like, oh, I'm a face general manager, so you'll go one-on-one with the Undertaker, bad man heel. Oh, I'm a heel general manager, so I need to cost every face the title. You know what I mean? He was consistent. He was involved in storylines, but he never overshadowed.
I was raging at that because he done it with that happened again at Fully Loaded, where Benoit beat The Rock, and they restarted the match, and then Benoit won this. I was then a massive Benoit fan, and I was so happy he finally became WWE champion, and then Vic came out the bar. What the fuck do you want? and I restart the match, and I'm like, you're kidding me. You're absolutely kidding me.
I know, and to make matters worse for a Benoit fan like yourself, he's the man that gets pinned in the end by The Rock.
I know. Fucking livid.
Something I liked was Kane grabbing the Undertaker to stop him getting back in, and Undertaker shouting, fucking let me go, as if to go, like, if I break up the pin, we can both still win, you know what I mean? But Kane he was like, they're in this rivalry at the minute, he doesn't care, he's just trying to beat the shit out of his older brother. It's just sheer jealousy. As an older brother, I know exactly what that's like, to have a younger brother who just...
JR covered it quite well, because JR said, Lawler said it, he says Kane didn't care that he didn't win the title, he just didn't want Undertaker winning it, which kind of thought, well, that's him adding a bit of spice into their feud. Yeah,
it's just a typical Scott McLeod, state of mind, and it can't be allowed to continue, just utter mistakes.
Have you tried burning him alive or setting him on fire?
I get the matches taken off me, my mom will only allow it. I hate this lockdown. I'm meant to be moving house at the end of the month, and this lockdown's just put a pure dampener on it. Like, so I can't move house, I can't set my brother on fire. It's like Step Brothers. This house is horse shit.
I'm trapped in a nightmare.
It's a fucking prison.
I'd love to see you put that on the Corona statement, and it's the coronavirus, what prevented you? I couldn't move house or set my brother on fire.
And the galaxy of this sucks camel dick.
Right, anyway, we're segueing off this again.
I know. I think we need to borrow Ryan and Ryan's catchphrase. Anyway, back to the wrestling. See, this match, it's chaos at its best. It's 4 of the best of this era. There's no much else we can say other than you were utterly raging at the finish.
The raging is an understatement. Buying a plane ticket to America and beating Mick Foley to death was probably the closest thing I would say.
Well, I think that's a lovely note just to end us on there, Strak, isn't it?
That's not what you did to me, Mick. You hurt me, Mick.
So this has been a wildly off-topic episode of the Ross's Retro Review. There's not been such a off-topic retro review since I did Insurrection with David Campbell, and it's only going to get worse because I'm doing No Mercy with David Campbell. I'm recording that tomorrow night, and it'll be released at the same time as this. So there's going to be SummerSlam with Stephen Wilson, that's like an hour in and out, straight to the point, stick to the wrestling. And then there's going to be Unforgiven and No Mercy with you and David Campbell that are just completely off topic, just completely.
But
I'll
see,
probably
I
end up
ramble because I say I lived through that era and I'm an old man, so I like to think about the whole era and not just that match.
Yeah. So what you're saying is you're the Grandpa Simpson of ESSR.
Pretty much. So back in my day, women took us dinner and liked it.
I made myself
When
a
they
bit
called
of
someone a
cups.
bitch, you called him a bitch.
Anyway, back to the wrestling, or back to Suplex Retweet, who you can follow on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Suplex Retweet. You can find us on iTunes, Anchor, Spotify, and all good Android podcasting sites. Suplex Retweet Extra and Eat Sleep Suplex Retweet. SuplexRetweet.com is our shiny, not new, but still good website. And all it remains is to say is thank you, Strak.
No problem, mate. Thanks very much.
Not a worry. I'm Ross McLeod. This has been the Retro Review, and remember, stay inside.